If you've ever looked at the man you love and wondered, where did the spark go? You're not alone. For many women over 50, something changes quietly. The hugs become shorter, the glances less frequent, and the closeness that once felt effortless now feels distant. It's not that the love is gone, it's that the connection has changed. Here's what no one ever told you. Every man, no matter his age, still carries 7 hidden pathways of desire beneath his skin. 7 quiet places that, when touched with awareness, can awaken his emotion, his loyalty, and his heart. These places aren't about performance or appearance. They are biological signals deeply wired into his nervous system. I'm Dr. Lisa Perriera, a board-certified gynecologist with more than 30 years of experience helping women restore circulation confidence and emotional intimacy naturally after menopause. And today, I want to share something that most couples never hear, that real attraction after 50 doesn't fade. It simply changes form. I've seen it again and again in my patients. Women in their 50s, 60s, and even 70s who believed passion had passed them by, only to rediscover it through small, mindful gestures. Not through trying harder, but through touching smarter. Because here's the truth, a man's desire is not limited to his youth or his hormones. According to studies from the Mayo Clinic and Cleveland Clinic, male sensitivity is deeply tied to emotional safety and blood flow. When a woman's touch signals calmness instead of pressure, his entire physiology changes. His pulse slows, his breathing deepens, and his mind opens to connection. Imagine this: you walk past him one evening, and without a word, you rest your hand gently at the back of his neck. He stops. His shoulders soften. For the first time in a long time, he looks at you. Really looks at you. That is not coincidence. That is biology and emotion speaking the same language. Touch after 50 isn't about excitement. It's about presence. When your hand moves with intention instead of habit, you awaken the chemistry that most couples lose with time, the quiet current of oxytocin, the hormone of bonding and trust. So stay with me. Because in this video, I'm going to reveal the 7 hidden places on a man's body that can reignite his trust emotion and devotion, one gentle touch at a time. Each one backed by science, each one rooted in real stories of women who thought connection was gone, until they learned this truth. Before we begin, take a second to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another video made for women over 60 who want to feel confident, connected, and alive again. And tell me in the comments, does this message resonate with you, type 1, if it speaks to your heart, or 0, if there's another kind of guidance you'd like me to share next. Because this channel isn't just about health. It's about rediscovering the power of being a woman, one touch, one truth, and one quiet moment at a time. Now take a deep breath, because in just a moment, I'll show you the very first place every man secretly longs for your touch, a place that can melt even the most guarded heart and remind him what it feels like to be completely yours again. Most women believe that when a man grows distant, it's because his desire has faded. But in truth, what's changed isn't his attraction, it's his response. His body, his hormones, and his emotions are still capable of deep connection, but years of stress and quiet pressure have rewired the way he feels it. I've seen this in so many couples. A husband who loves his wife deeply, but feels disconnected. A wife who tries harder new clothes, new routines, a smile that hides worry. But none of it seems to reach him. Why? Because most women over 50 were never taught how male desire actually works after midlife. Let's talk about the 4 most common mistakes women make when trying to reconnect and what to do instead. The first mistake is rushing. When intimacy feels missing, many women try to fix it quickly, hoping a kiss, a hug, or a sudden touch will rekindle passion. But the male body after 50 doesn't respond to suddenness. His circulation slows, his nervous system needs calm to awaken, not speed. The Mayo Clinic confirms that stress and poor blood flow are the top reasons men lose responsiveness, not lack of attraction. So slow everything down. Let each gesture breathe. Give his body time to trust the moment again. Desire isn't born in urgency, it grows in safety. The second mistake is touching without intention. A distracted pat, a routine hug, or a touch given out of obligation sends mixed messages. Men, especially those who've carried years of responsibility, can sense when your energy isn't present. It's not about technique, it's about focus. When you touch him with awareness, even if it's just resting your hand on his arm while talking, he feels it instantly. The Cleveland Clinic calls this the emotional resonance effect. Your heartbeat, breath, and tone of voice actually sync with his nervous system. Real touch begins in the mind, not the fingers. The third mistake is ignoring his emotional state. Many women assume men can separate emotion from intimacy, but after 50 that's rarely true. As testosterone declines, a man's emotions become more intertwined with his physical responses. If he feels criticized, invisible, or unappreciated, his body withdraws to protect him. This isn't rejection, it's defense. One of my patients, Diane, told me her husband shut down every time she tried to be affectionate. When she stopped leading with frustration and instead said softly, "I miss you," everything shifted. His shoulders relaxed. His face softened. Because men crave to be understood long before they crave to be touched. And the fourth mistake, perhaps the most important, is forgetting your own energy. Women often try so hard to awaken their partner that they forget to awaken themselves. Your body, your presence, your calmness, these set the tone for everything that follows. A woman's energy is contagious. When you're grounded, your touch feels safe. When you're anxious, it feels uncertain. One of my patients, a 61-year-old woman named Clara, said I thought I had to make him feel wanted. But when I started reconnecting with my own body, stretching, breathing, moisturizing slowly, he started reaching for me again. Because men don't just respond to beauty, they respond to aliveness. If any of these patterns sound familiar, don't blame yourself. None of us were ever taught how connection changes with time. But the good news is, once you understand how a man's body and emotions respond, everything can shift even after decades. Because in just a moment, I'm going to show you the very first place where that change begins. It's not where you expect. It's a spot that holds both tension and tenderness, strength and surrender. And when your touch finds it, you'll see how quickly his body remembers what it means to feel safe, seen, and alive again. The first place where real connection begins is the back of his neck. It might seem simple, but this small area carries more emotion and stress than most people realize. It's the space where his body holds years of responsibility, every decision, every burden, every unspoken worry. For many men, this is where strength hides exhaustion. When you touch the back of his neck, you're not just touching skin. You're speaking directly to his nervous system, to the part of him that has forgotten how to relax. The Cleveland Clinic explains that the nerves at the base of the skull connect to the brain's emotional center. Slow, intentional touch here lowers cortisol, the stress hormone, and increases oxytocin, the hormone of trust. It tells his body without a single word, "You can let go now." I remember one of my patients, Marie, 58, who told me her husband had grown distant after retiring. "He sits in silence most evenings," she said. "I try to talk to him, but it's like he's somewhere else." I asked her to try something new. The next time she walked past him, just pause for a second. Place your hand gently at the back of his neck. No words, no expectation, just warmth. When she came back the following week, her eyes filled with tears. He turned around and looked at me differently, she said. Then he smiled, like he hadn't in years. That moment wasn't luck. It was biology and emotion aligning. Touching this area sends a signal to his entire body that it's safe to soften. It bypasses logic and goes straight to instinct. Here's how to try it yourself. Wait until he's calm, maybe reading, cooking, or sitting quietly. Approach slowly. Let your fingers rest at the base of his hairline and glide down to the nape of his neck. Move slowly, barely pressing. You're not massaging, you're reminding. Let your breath stay close to his ear. That subtle warmth tells his brain, you're not alone. Watch how his body reacts. His shoulders might drop, his eyes might close, or he may take a deeper breath. Those tiny shifts are signs of release. His body is saying, I feel safe. Over time, these moments create new emotional memory. They replace distance with comfort. Because what a man truly craves after 50 isn't excitement, it's peace. And when that peace comes from your touch, he feels something rare, freedom inside connection. I've seen marriages transform with this one gesture. A woman once told me, it was like his whole body exhaled. That's the power of presence, not passion forced, but calm energy offered. Because when you master this kind of touch, you're no longer chasing desire. You're awakening it. You're reminding his body that it's still capable of tenderness, still worthy of closeness, still deeply connected to you. And once you've felt that quiet shift, when his breath slows and his body softens, you'll be ready for the next place where touch becomes even more intimate. It's smaller, quieter, and pulses with life just beneath the surface. That's the inside of his wrist, the place where emotion meets heartbeat, and where your connection begins to speak without words. The inside of his wrist may seem like such a small, ordinary place, but it's one of the most sensitive and emotionally charged areas on his body. Just beneath that thin layer of skin lies his pulse, the rhythm that tells his story without words. It's the physical expression of what he feels inside. When you touch that space gently, you're not only connecting with his body, you're connecting with his heart. I once worked with a couple in their early 60s who had quietly drifted apart. They still cared for each other, but the warmth was gone. During one session, I asked the wife to sit across from her husband, hold his hand, and lightly rest her fingertip on the inside of his wrist. Don't talk, I said. Just breathe. She told me later that within seconds, something changed. His shoulders dropped, she said softly. Then he looked up and smiled, like he finally recognized me again. That wasn't magic, that was biology. The inner wrist is packed with sensory nerves connected to the valgus nerve, which communicates directly with the brain's center of calm and connection. The Mayo Clinic explains that slow, gentle touch here can lower blood pressure and heart rate, while increasing oxytocin, the same hormone that strengthens emotional bonds. Most men rarely experience this kind of touch. Their daily contact is functional, a handshake, a pat on the back, maybe a brief hug. None of it carries intimacy or presence. So when your touch lands on the inside of his wrist, with calm intention, his nervous system reacts before his thoughts do. He doesn't have to understand it. His body simply knows he feels safe. Try this in an ordinary moment during dinner or while sitting next to him watching television. Reach out and let your fingers rest lightly over his wrist. Feel for his pulse. Trace small, slow circles there with your thumb. You don't need to speak. Just breathe and let silence do the work. Notice what happens. His breathing may deepen, his gaze may linger, or he may simply take your hand in return. That's connection being rebuilt in real time. One of my favorite patients, a woman named Evelyn, once told me, it wasn't about romance. It was about remembering that we're still alive together. That's exactly what this gesture does. It brings the present moment back to life. What makes this simple touch so powerful is its honesty. You're not demanding anything. You're offering presence. You're saying, I'm here, I feel you, and you still matter. Over time, these small moments change the energy between you. They turn routine into ritual, silence into safety, and distance into recognition. And when that happens, when your calmness starts to match the rhythm of his pulse, something else awakens. His confidence, his softness, his quiet longing to feel anchored in your presence. Because just below that emotion is another space, one that carries his strength, stability, and unspoken desire to feel chosen. It's a place that grounds him physically and emotionally at the same time. That place is the small of his back, the spot that holds his balance, his burdens, and his need to feel trusted. And when you learn to touch him, there everything between you deepens the safety, the desire, and the bond that time can never erase. The small of his back is where his strength and his need for reassurance quietly live side by side. It's the space that holds his stability, his posture, and his pride, but also his fatigue, his stress, and the pressure of always having to be strong. Most men never realize how much emotion they store there until the moment someone touches it with care. When your hand finds the small of his back, you're not just reaching for closeness. You're grounding him. You're telling his body, you can rest here. You don't have to carry everything alone. And the beauty is, you don't even need words. His body will understand immediately. The Cleveland Clinic notes that the lower back is full of nerve pathways connected to the spine and hips, the very areas that regulate balance and stability. When touched gently, those nerves signal to the brain that it's safe to release tension. His muscles loosen, his breathing slows, and a sense of calm takes over. In that moment, he's not being the protector. He's simply being human again. I remember a woman named Caroline, 61, who told me she felt like her husband had emotionally shut down. He's kind but distant, she said. It feels like he's in another world. I smiled and said, he's probably not in another world. He's just stuck in the one inside his body. Try this the next time you walk behind him. Rest your hand gently at the small of his back. Say nothing. Just stay there for 2 breaths. She came back the following week, glowing. He turned, looked at me and smiled, like it was years ago, she said. We didn't say a word, but something changed. That kind of moment is not random. It's biological and emotional connection happening at once. The lower back represents both his control and his vulnerability. When your touch lands there, you're giving him permission to relax that control without taking away his dignity. You're saying, you're still my safe place, and I'm still yours. You can try this in everyday moments, walking beside him, standing together at the sink, waiting in line. Let your hand rest softly against his back, right above the waistline. Don't press. Just let it stay. Feel the warmth between your palm and his skin. That warmth alone tells his nervous system that you are close, steady, and safe. You might notice his posture change, his shoulders pull back, his chest opens, his breathing steadies. That's his body recognizing your touch not as an interruption, but as belonging. One woman told me, when I touched him there, it felt like the room got quiet. That quiet is what connection after 50 feels like. Not fireworks, but presence. Not speed, but depth. Because love at this stage isn't about chasing passion, it's about remembering peace. And once you've seen that calm in him, that subtle shift from tension to tenderness, you'll be ready for the next step. The next place is smaller, higher, and more intimate. It's where admiration turns into attraction, where a single touch can awaken not only desire, but identity. That place is the edge of his jawline, the silent intersection between confidence and emotion. And when you learn to touch him there, you don't just make him feel wanted, You remind him of the man he still is. The edge of his jawline is where pride meets tenderness. It's the part of his body that faces the world, strong, defined, and confident. But beneath that strength lies something softer, something few people ever touch with care. When you trace your fingers along that line from just below his ear toward his chin, you're doing far more than showing affection. You're awakening recognition. You're saying, "I still see you." I once worked with a woman named Patricia, 57, who said to me, "My husband and I love each other, but I miss the spark. He feels so distant." I told her to try something simple. Next time you're close, don't say anything. Just look at him. Really, look at him. And then let your finger trace along his jawline slowly. Then stop. Don't rush the silence. A week later, she returned with a soft, almost shy smile. "I did it," she said. He froze, looked right at me, and I could see something shift. It felt like he remembered how we used to be. That's the power of this touch. It's not about arousal, it's about recognition. The jawline is close to several sensitive nerve pathways that connect to the lips and neck, which respond immediately to gentle contact. But emotionally, it's where his confidence lives. For men, especially after 50, this area represents pride, strength, and self-worth. Years of providing, protecting, and enduring make them crave something they rarely receive: admiration. When your fingertips move slowly along that edge, you're reminding him that he's still the man who once made your heart race. You're honoring the strength he's built and the gentleness he's hidden. One patient once told me, "When I touched him there, he leaned into my hand like his body wanted to stay in that moment." Here's how to try it yourself. Wait for a quiet time, maybe when you're both talking or sitting close or sharing a soft laugh. Let your eyes meet his. Then lift your hand slowly and trace along his jawline following its curve. Move lightly, then pause. Don't fill the space with words, let the silence linger. That pause is what awakens emotion. You'll notice subtle signs: his breath slowing his gaze, softening his body, leaning slightly closer. That's not coincidence. It's connection. The Cleveland Clinic explains that admiration releases dopamine, the hormone tied to motivation and joy. When you give him that feeling through touch, you're reigniting something deeper than attraction. You're restoring confidence. It's not about recreating youth. It's about reviving presence, reminding him that being desired doesn't end with age. Because when you touch him this way, you're not trying to get his attention. You're giving him peace. And from that calm admiration, something even more intimate can unfold. There's a place just below, smaller, softer, and far more vulnerable, where a single gesture can transform quiet connection into deep emotional awakening. It's his lower lip, the threshold between thought and feeling. When you learn to touch it even gently, you'll understand what it means to speak without words, and how desire after 50 becomes more powerful, more tender, and more real than ever before. The lower lip is one of the most expressive and sensitive places on a man's body. It's where his words end and his emotions begin. You don't even need to kiss him to awaken it. Sometimes a slow, intentional touch speaks louder than anything you could ever say. I remember one of my patients, a woman named Lorraine, 60, who told me, "We still care for each other, but it's been years since I've felt that spark. It's like we're friends, not partners." I smiled and said, "Tonight, when you're sitting close, don't rush. Don't try to make anything happen. Just lift your hand and trace your finger gently along his lower lip. Then stop. Let silence do the work." The next week, she came back glowing. "It was like time paused," she said. He looked at me as if something inside him woke up. That kind of moment is simple but powerful. The lower lip contains thousands of nerve endings connected to the same areas of the brain that respond to warmth, comfort, and anticipation. When you touch him there slowly, you're not creating urgency, you're creating space. The pause between your touch and what might come next builds curiosity, focus, and emotional tension in the best way possible. It's not about control, it's about awareness. You're inviting him into a moment instead of demanding it. And that's what true intimacy after 50 is: invitation, not performance. Try this when the moment feels quiet, unhurried. Let your hand move slowly from his jawline to his lower lip. Glide your fingertip gently across that soft curve. Don't press. Don't rush. Just hold still for a second, then pull back slightly. You'll often see his breath catch or his gaze linger. That's his body's way of saying, "I remember this. I remember us." This kind of anticipation is what many couples lose over the years. They forget that the most powerful part of connection is not what happens next, it's what happens just before. That space of stillness, that unspoken awareness, is where emotion lives. One woman described it to me beautifully. It wasn't about being seductive, she said. It was about feeling alive again. And that's exactly what happens for both of you. When you allow intimacy to unfold slowly, your bodies start speaking a language older than words. It's a rhythm of presence, trust, and memory. And yet there's something even deeper than physical touch. Because true connection, the kind that lasts through decades, doesn't depend on the skin. It lives in the space between your words, in the way you listen, and in the calm energy you bring into a room. Sometimes the most powerful form of touch is no touch at all. It's when you sit together, quietly, look at him, and let him feel your attention. I've watched couples in their 70s rediscover closeness simply by holding eye contact for a few seconds longer than usual. That's the invisible touch, the one that tells him you're still seen. You're still safe. You're still mine. Because when presence replaces pressure, connection replaces effort. And when that happens, you'll understand what real intimacy after 50 truly is: not about passion that fades, but about tenderness that deepens. And now, as we bring everything together, I'll show you how these gestures, from the neck to the wrist, from the back to the lips, and even the quiet space between words, can become one language of love. A language that doesn't fade with age, but grows richer, wiser, and more lasting with time. Let's take it all home, because this is where passion becomes peace and where touch becomes devotion. Every touch, every glance, every pause between you carries meaning. When you begin to understand that something beautiful happens, intimacy stops being effort and becomes energy. You no longer try to make him respond. Instead, your presence draws him in naturally, because he feels it not in his mind, but deep in his body. I've seen women in their 60s and 70s rediscover that kind of quiet power. They didn't change who they were. They simply began to touch with awareness, to speak with gentleness, to look with intention. And slowly, everything shifted. Because connection after 50 isn't about youth, it's about attention. It's about how you make him feel when you're near. When your hand finds the back of his neck, you're telling him it's safe to let go. When your fingers trace the inside of his wrist, you're speaking to his heartbeat. When your palm rests on the small of his back, you remind him he's still strong, still your safe place. When you trace the edge of his jawline, you awaken his confidence. When your fingertip glides over his lower lip, you invite emotion to rise to the surface. And when you sit beside him in silence, fully present, calm, unhurried, you remind him that love isn't noise, it's recognition. That's the real secret most people miss. After 50, intimacy isn't about doing more, it's about feeling more. The body may slow down, but the heart learns depth. The nervous system no longer craves excitement. It craves peace, trust, and belonging. And when you offer those things, he doesn't just desire you, he cherishes you. One woman, 72, once told me something I'll never forget. I thought passion was gone, she said. But when I started slowing down, touching him softly, and really seeing him, he came back to me. It wasn't fire, it was warmth, and it was better. That warmth is what keeps love alive for a lifetime. It's what turns years into connection instead of distance. So as you move forward, remember, it's not about perfection, it's about presence. You don't need to change who you are or who he is. You just need to meet him where he's always been, waiting in the quiet spaces between your words and your touch. If this message spoke to you, I'd love to know. Leave a comment below and tell me which moment you want to try first. Maybe the back of the neck, or perhaps the wrist. Your story could inspire another woman who needs to hear this today. And if you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another video made just for women over 60 women who want to feel confident, connected, and fully alive again. And before we close, let me remind you, this video is for educational purposes only. It does not replace medical advice. Every woman's body is unique. If you are experiencing pain, significant changes, or have personal concerns, please consult with your healthcare provider. Your well-being deserves personalized care.